Since the beginning of time, men have tested their strength by lifting the heaviest rocks they could find. And there are few lifting stones as famous as this one.
The Husafell stone weighs 410 pounds. That's about the size of a small car engine. Not only might we see a new world record, we could be in the presence of a new legend. He's done it.
The thing that I noticed is that thing is heavy on the chest. It's hard to breathe. That was the hardest thing about that.
The Husafell stone from Iceland is so iconic that replicas of it are used in strongman competitions around the world. The legend goes that the triangular mass was the gate to a pastor's sheep pen. But the first person to lift it and carry it around the rock wall wasn't a man at all. It was actually the pastor's daughter. If the story's true, that makes Leafa Ingalls and Sandra Bradley some of the only women to pick up the stone in over 250 years.
It's like a puzzle you have to solve because everybody has different levers and advantages and strengths.
Yeah! Come on! Yes!
What's been the reaction since you've done this lift?
I can't count how many times I've read that my spine is going to pop out my back or my uterus is going to fall out.
Extend! Extend!
Elite athletes today are bigger, stronger, and can lift heavier weights than ever before. Even in the lowest weight classes, they lift twice, 3 times, or even 5 times their own body weight.
Wow. That's a wild amount of weight.
The heaviest conventional lifts of all time are somewhere between 1,100 and 1,500 pounds. And only a handful of athletes are capable of inching those numbers higher. In this video, we're doing a deep dive into all the factors making this new era of human strength possible.
How big can human muscles be? We don't really know.
And by the end, we'll answer the question: what's the maximum weight a human being can lift?
On the way we go! Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Hall lifts the half-ton 500 kilograms!
Until strongman Eddie Hall did it in 2016, people weren't convinced a 500 kilogram or about 1,100 pound deadlift was even possible. But records don't seem to be slowing down. In 2020, Eddie's was broken by Hafthor Bjornsson, the strongman and actor from Game of Thrones.
I doubt that you're human sometimes. Yeah, people have doubted it for a long time. Yeah, but I'm true that I'm human. I tore back, remember? Oh, that's true.
In strongman competitions, the lifter is allowed to wear a suit and straps to help with their grip. This differs from raw powerlifting, in which the suit is not allowed. It could be argued that raw powerlifting is a more pure test of strength. But as you could see from this chart, all of the heaviest lifts of all time used some kind of equipment. And that allows the athletes to add several more plates to their heaviest lifts. And if we're purely talking about the heaviest weights a human can lift, an elevated bar is an easy adjustment that allows strongmen to lift way more. Thor's 501 kilogram lift was with a standard barbell that sits 9 inches off the ground. But elevate the weight to 18 inches and the world record climbs to 580 kilograms. And at 27 inches off the ground, it stands at a massive 670 kilograms. But for the strongmen looking to prove themselves, the standard bar deadlift has become one of the key benchmarks of human strength.
It's like good musicians, artists, anything, they do masterpieces and it looks like zero effort. So I think my friend Avi is a true artist in the ways and the manners of the deadlift. Yeah, just wanted to say that. Thank you. What is that in here?
Other people have argued that the ultimate test of strength is how much weight you can hoist over your head. In that case, we'll have to look at Olympic weightlifting. But compared to the recent string of record-breaking and strongman competitions, Olympic weightlifting records are a different story.
Well, it certainly felt as though all of the biggest lifts were hit in the 80s. It actually dropped off for 30 plus years.
In the 1970s, the Soviet lifter Vasily Alexeyev set 80 world records. He was famous for increasing his lifts as gradually as possible, sometimes by as little as 500 grams, because each time he broke a record, he received a payout from the Soviet state. And almost 50 years later, the clean and jerk world record now stands at only 11 kilograms more than his 256 kilogram best. Compare this to deadlifting, where in the last 50 years, the world records have risen by over 120 kilograms.
And it's really only since 2016, there's this one guy who's turned up from Georgia, Lasha Talakadze, and he has started to break all-time world records again. And because he's a super heavyweight, these are sort of the absolute most weights that any human has ever put overhead.
He secured his third Olympic gold medal in the Paris Games.
What do you think it is that is getting him to be able to move that needle again in terms of inching up these weights?
He's like a larger scale human. He's extremely tall. So he's in proportion to the most athletic, smaller weightlifters, just scaled up. And so that allows him, because he's taller, he has a greater distance to pull the bar, to accelerate the bar. The bar can reach greater speeds.
These lifts are incredibly impressive, especially considering that Olympians are always subject to drug testing before they compete.
You think that everybody's clean, and then you learn a little bit, and you think that nobody's clean, and then you learn and you stay in the sport for much longer, and suddenly you feel like you actually have no idea what's going on.
We'll get into steroids more later. They're an open secret in strength sports, but steroid use can only enhance what's already there.
With giants like Eddie Hall, Hafthor, and Lasha roaming the earth, we know that size matters. Over the past 150 years of industrial civilization, people have just grown bigger, with easy access to lots of calories, and eliminating a lot of the things that used to kill us before we could grow up. But here's the thing, science hasn't really cracked the code on what it takes to become super strong. That's partly because elite athletes rarely take the time out of their busy training schedules to sit for the kind of observation and testing that scientists like to do.
There have been case studies from very high-profile athletes in other sports, and nobody really from strength and power sports.
So that's why it was such a big deal when Eddie Hall agreed to go through a series of tests at Loughborough University in the United Kingdom.
Do you know what you are already?
You know, I've been treated as a guinea pig for the last 10 years of my life, really. Every day's, I'm sort of poking and prodding at myself to see what I could do with my body, so I'm just used to it by now. Here we're testing all the different variants of my muscles and my tendons and ligaments and everything.
So what did they discover?
So his overall lower body muscle mass was bigger than any individual or groups that we've measured before, more than twice that of untrained controls.
The scans of Eddie's legs are on the left, and the images on the right are of an average person.
But what was really interesting is that there was a pattern to that muscularity. Some muscles were only a little bit bigger actually, you know, maybe only 25, 30% bigger than untrained controls. Other muscles were 3 times as big, so 200% bigger.
3 specific muscles in Eddie's leg were much larger than anybody else. The sartorius, gracilis, and semitendinosus, also known as the guy rope muscles.
The 3 muscles that help provide stability to the thigh and hip.
Muscles that are really important for doing, you guessed it, really heavy deadlifts. The team also discovered that when compared to other professional athletes, Eddie is still in a class of his own.
Quite similarly, with his counter movement jump power output, his peak power output, he was about 40% more powerful than the highest values in the published research literature that come from professional basketball players.
On this chart, Eddie's the X in the top right corner. When it came time to test the strength of Eddie's deadlift, he may have accidentally given us a preview of where human strength could be headed next.
Going in. 3, 2, 1, go! Let's go!
That's 7,483 newtons, so that's about 750 kilos.
That's equal to a force 250 kilograms more than the current world records.
I think I'll leave it to that, guys.
Yeah.
They're pulling me now. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
So now we're getting a little bit closer to understanding the idea of theoretical maximum human strength. Take a massive human being, train them in a few specific body movements, maybe feed them a little bit of steroids, and pretty soon we'll have somebody who can deadlift 750 kilograms. Sound about right?
Well, what if I told you that the Guinness Book of World Records records the heaviest lift of all time at over 3 times that amount of weight?
Who is gonna tell the child about Jesus? Who is gonna tell the child about God?
That record belongs to this guy right here.
Hello, I'm Greg Ernst, and I live in Nova Scotia. I'm a farmer and a blacksmith, and I guess I'm the guy so far the man that's lifted the most.
He also sings gospel music with his family, in case that wasn't clear. In 1993, Greg set a world record with a type of lift that you just don't see that much anymore.
They're in the air.
For the past few years, Greg seems to be lifting everything and anything and breaking records along the way. The oxen may not be impressed, but the crowds keep coming back. Just 2 weeks ago in a driving rainstorm at this country exhibition, Greg did something no man has ever done. Using a specially built platform, he lifted 2 Ford Festivas and their drivers. Total weight, 5,340 pounds.
There was press there was a lot of people gathered, and it was a real spectacle. So what did you do to prepare for that, and what do you remember about the day?
It was wet. It really rained hard. It was so hard to keep your hand, the handboard dry enough that your hands wouldn't slip off. That was the big problem.
And you got big hands. Let's see your hands. You've got gigantic hands.
Anyway.
The reason you've probably never heard of Greg's record is because a backlift is sort of an old-timey strongman thing to do. It's the kind of lift that you might see before the days of television, when strongmen would travel around, attracting crowds to watch them do their feats of strength. In 1957, legendary American strongman Paul Anderson allegedly lifted 6,270 pounds, almost 1,000 pounds more than Greg's record. But it was never verified. Unlike Greg, who had people from the Guinness Book on site when he did his lift in 1993. Why do you think that the backlift is not really part of most strongman competitions, and do you think it's something that should come back?
I think it should come back.
Greg only lifted the cars about an inch or two off the ground. In this footage, it's almost imperceptible.
I'll tell you the reason, and this is what, if there's anybody listening that wants to try this, which I recommend, but you just got to be careful. And that is, if you happen to hyperextend those knees, like you get to the top and you bend, you're a little back bend in that knee, and that weight comes down, it'll tear your knee. It'll just destroy your legs.
And in addition to that high risk for injury, it's just less impressive than some of the events you can see in strongman competitions today. None of these events approach Greg's record, but they're just really cool to watch. But the Guinness record isn't the only thing Greg is known for. Remember the Husafell stone? He set a new world record with that as well in the early days of the World's Strongest Man competition. It wasn't seriously challenged until almost 30 years later, when Hafthor came onto the scene. And there was one really important thing that Greg says set him apart from his competitors.
They always trained and competed completely drug-free. And it was a huge disadvantage when you were at World's Strongest Man, because there was virtually nobody who did it that way. Well, my strength was on the farm, so I had dairy cattle. We had some beef, so I had access to all the milk and meat that I wanted. And so, for instance, in the height of my training, I would down a 5-pound beef roast a day. I would down 2 gallons of milk a day. If somebody comes along and does it like I did it, fine. As far as I'm concerned, the guys with superior nutrition, if they should, to be on par or equal, should be about 7,000.
Just to make that clear, Greg's saying if we could get someone with modern nutrition and training to do a back lift like he did, that lift could clock in somewhere over 7,000 pounds. That's almost 6 times the weight of the deadlift record.
And so they're just it's just something that your body is hooked up for.
And you're saying your body was hooked up for this backlift?
Yeah, my body. There's 2 things I was pretty bloody good at, and that was stone lifting, and this backlifting. And there's some guys that are hooked up for overhead pressing, for instance, or bench pressing. They can't deadlift what they can bench, but they're hooked up for bench. And then there's some guys that are great deadlifters.
What Greg is talking about is a concept known as leverage. Certain body types are just built differently, and those special proportions can give someone an advantage when it comes to lifting weights. And that's why I called this guy.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, what's going on, Mike?
Nothing. So just got back from work.
Awesome. What do you do for a job?
I work at a steel fabrication shop. I run a CNC and weld, mostly.
We're here in Allentown. We made it to Allentown, Pennsylvania, and we're going to go meet with Mike Coons, who is a power lifter, record holder, and is going to help us understand a little bit more what goes into the strength requirements to lift the biggest amount of weight possible.
If we're talking about the maximum weight you can lift compared to your body weight, Mike is the person to beat. He set a powerlifting world record for his raw squat of just over 250 kilograms. That means he lifted over 4 times his own body weight. And that's something these bigger lifters can't compete with. Compare that to Eddie Hall or Hafthor, who can only squat 2.5 times their body weight.
Okay, so let's go inside.
Mike's competed in powerlifting since he was a little kid. We spent a day with him to see how his unique proportions affect his strength.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, hey, Dan. How's it going, man? Very nice to meet you.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to weigh what, like 70 pounds? No, more.
I'd have to, at least. I'd have to look at the papers and stuff to see. But this stuff's, and this is, grade A572 steel, so it's dense.
Yeah.
And stuff and everything.
So in other words, this is part of your warm-up, right?
Yeah, I think if not for powerlifting, a person of my size wouldn't fare too well in this line of work.
For sure. When you were, let's say when you were a kid, when you first started lifting, how old were you?
I started training about 10, 11 years old.
Mike's first coach was his dad, Don.
Hi.
Hey, I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm Don.
Good to meet you, Don.
Glad to meet you.
Yeah. This is Mike at 9 years old before he started training.
And he came home one day from school, visibly upset, and I said, "What's the problem?" And it was his classmates were picking teams for sports, and he's always the one that gets picked last. And he said that they picked for baseball, I'm the last one. They picked for football, I'm the last one. They picked for basketball. I said, "Well, you're not built for basketball." He goes, "Well, what am I built for?" And I'm thinking, "Okay, Dad, think quick." I said, "You know what? You're built for power. And we're going down in the basement and lift weights. Let's go." And that's how it started.
All right. So this is it. This is the dungeon.
This is it. This is the pit.
So what do you have down here?
Well, we have a squat rack here, so we do our barbell squats in here. And the crossbars in case we miss.
Right.
All right. I have a chin-up bar here. I do chin-ups, pull-ups, and I also do inversion.
This looks about the size of like the kind of plate you'd have at like a Blink Fitness or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is 100-pound plate.
Yeah. And these are in Yorks run heavy. If you stretch this.
This
stretch
feels
that.
stretchy. This feels stretchy.
And I try the squat suit.
There's absolutely no stretch in here. Take this one back. There's no stretch in this, and the idea is that it's keeping the hips tight, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's the idea of this. So, how would you describe the way that his body works in how it helps him for powerlifting?
Well, his range of motion is advantageous to the barbell squat and to the bench press, and it's very disadvantageous to the deadlift. The best deadlifters have long limbs and a short spine. Mike's just the opposite.
So to see how that works, it was time to hit the gym. We came to this gym to see how Mike's leverages give him an advantage in two exercises, the squat and the bench press.
When I was younger, I could warm up quicker, but now that I'm getting older, gotta throw a couple more sets in, get everything nice and loose.
We slowed down this footage to see how big of a difference it is between Mike's squat and mine. He just has much less distance to cover based on his proportions.
So basically the point, yeah. So you're missing it's like
degrees.
About a 12 degree missing from straightening out full extension. Plus you're also jacked, so.
It's like when people say, other powerlifters, I wish you had your leverages. Yeah, until you have to use equipment or you want to grab something on the top shelf at the grocery store. Then you don't want my leverages. Then you see if you want them then.
And it's the same story with Mike's bench press. But here is where Mike's body starts to work against him. This motion technically should be able to move the most amount of weight because you're engaging your back, your arms, and your legs. Here, Mike has to start bent over the bar, which makes it harder to initiate the lift and requires a bigger surge of effort at the beginning. When it comes to the deadlift, a short torso can handle a much heavier load. And that's why Stuart Jamieson has been called the most anatomically perfect deadlifter of all time. The Scottish athlete was born with spina bifida, a condition in which his spinal cord failed to develop properly. And he's missing half a rib cage. But the length of his limbs, in comparison with his short torso, gives him the perfect leverages for deadlifting. So now that we understand the concept of leverages, let's return to the original question. What's the maximum amount of weight that a human being can lift? Right now, the world's strongest men are competing to break Hafthor's record and trying to deadlift 505 kilograms. The good news is that athletes like Thor and Mitchell Hooper, the Arnold Strongman winner for the last 3 years in a row, share a lot about how they train. These men will soon face off in a competition to see who can lift 505 kilograms.
I will pull 505.
Now the dates and location, that's still being finalized.
Mitchell has outlaid his plan on his YouTube channel.
It's going to be a lot of volume in bodybuilding to grow some muscle mass in two particular areas for me. One is going to be my legs, and two is going to be my spinal erectors.
And meanwhile, Hafthor is already making a 460 kilogram lift look easy. A lot of this training is not rocket science. It's using the basics of what science knows about how to build muscle, by approaching maximal effort and strategically adding weight to get closer and closer to a goal. It also requires proper nutrition and a lot of calories.
Yes, I cook all the food for Hafthor every day, 6 days a week. He has one cheat day.
Thor consumes nearly 10,000 calories daily. That's over 3 times the intake of an average American.
350 gram rice, 125 grams tenderloin, 100 grams vegetable.
His go-to beverage is a smoothie made with Greek yogurt, orange juice, and olive oil.
I drink that with the meals most of the time.
And another drink with frozen berries and almond butter.
It's really nice. You blend together, it's like a dessert in the evenings.
It also involves a lot of back and leg strengthening exercises. Then there's the idea that just having someone to compete with is what drives elite athletes to lift heavier and heavier weights. Science backs this up. A 2015 study found that when presented with a physical effort task, study subjects performed better in a competitive environment when they thought they were competing against another person. That effect was more pronounced among the male test subjects. One thing that all strength competitors have in common is that they're able to override an important part of the brain that stops them from lifting heavier weights. The neurological system controls the muscles of the body. If the brain senses a weight is too heavy, it overrides the muscles and shuts them down to avoid injury. Reducing these neurological inhibitions can lead to bigger lifts. Just ask Eddie Hall.
I had to take myself to a zone where no other man has been. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the arena pulling 500 kilo off the floor. Basically, I trained my mind to a point where I was able to picture myself on a motorway in a car accident with my kids trapped under a car, lifting a car off of my kids. And it wasn't until I locked out that deadlift, it's almost as if I just woke up.
It's not just elite athletes who can override the brain's control over the muscles. There are countless urban legends of regular people exhibiting what's known as hysterical strength, a sudden, almost superhuman burst of power triggered by adrenaline.
These hormones act like rocket fuel for your body. Your heart pumps faster, your lungs gulp oxygen, and blood floods your muscles. It's fight or flight mode, and suddenly your muscles can contract harder and faster than they ever could before. By harnessing this hysterical strength and overriding the body's safety limits, athletes can push even harder, activating more motor units in their muscles and building strength that's closer to their true maximum capacity. So where do we go from here? Are we done when it comes to pushing human strength to its limits? Not quite. There's one more area we need to discuss, the elephant in the room: steroids. Performance-enhancing drugs are at the center of controversy in strength sports. Athletes from bodybuilders to strongmen commonly use these substances to boost their strength, recover faster, and build muscle more effectively. A study from 2012 showed that anabolic steroids could increase strength by about 5 to 20% in the test subject. And it's been estimated that as many as 4 million Americans regularly use anabolic steroids for athletic or cosmetic purposes.
I know for damn near a fact that essentially no one at the top of strongmen is natural. When you're asking people if they're natty or not, you're asking them to admit to the commission of crimes. And knowing the legal landscape that athletes have to traverse, I would consider highly discourteous and impolite to ask athletes on camera if they're on steroids or not. I think it's absurd.
There's no denying that PEDs are prevalent in strength sports. Many top athletes like Thor Bjornsson have admitted to using them. And while there's a stigma around their use, the question arises, what if we removed the stigma?
That's where the enhanced games comes in. Dubbed the Steroid Olympics and pitched as a byproduct of Trump's America after huge investment from Donald Trump Jr.
The media has claimed the enhanced games aren't possible. But in Trump's America,
the impossible is what we do best.
The enhanced games, a new Olympics for a new golden age.
And they want to run events where doping is completely allowed.
I believe that all human beings are enhanced. We're almost cybernetic beings now. We have an almost symbiotic relationship with digital devices, particularly mobile phones. And so I think of our objectives in the enhanced movement as building superhumanity. And I define superhumanity as where we are no longer limited by our biology.
Aaron believes that performance-enhancing drugs won't just enhance strength. They'll allow athletes to reach new limits that were previously thought impossible.
I think world records are going to be demolished.
But when so many in strength sports are already taking performance-enhancing drugs, the question is how much further can we actually go?
I would say, like, realistically, what someone could survive for 8 weeks of this kind of thing is 3 grams of testosterone. Your body weekly makes about 75 milligrams, to put that in perspective. Take, as many IUs of growth hormone as you could take until you have so much body water that you have sleep apnea and you can't sleep anymore, or your hands don't close anymore because you have so much body water on your hands that you can't actually grab a deadlift bar. I've only known a few people to do something like this, and any given day that they wake up is a blessing to them, I'll say that. No one's having any fun anymore at this point, by the way. But you will get stronger. Holy shit, you'll get stronger. Yeah.
There you go. He is tearing into this thing.
But even with this perfect balance of genetics, advanced nutrition, and performance-enhancing drugs, when we've already pushed our bodies to the absolute limit, any advancement on our current records is going to be incremental.
In the deadlift, it does depend really on how you measure the deadlift, so on and so forth. But I think something like a 1,200 pound deadlift, maybe 1,100 to 1,200 pounds without straps, I think is possible. You would say that's not a lot, but what we see with lifting as it gets heavier and as it approaches the human body's limits is that it gets exponentially more difficult to gain strength.
Big drag. Come on. Let's go for the record. Come on, Bill.
And so really, it's easy to look at a world record in the squat of roughly 1,100 and say someone could do 1,150, but people have been trying for a long time that it just does not work out like that. So only by injecting a ton of variation and new talent into the sport can we see, with many years, the numbers climb to such high levels with sort of unmodified humans as they typically present in the world.
Oh my God! Wow! Come on, judges. That's a good lift. Yes! Ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed history. You just witnessed history. Look at that crowd, too. Wow. Never been done before.